My phone rang in the middle of the worst storm of the year. "Detective, we've got a problem. A billionaire named Victor Ashworth was dead in his study, and his son had called it in, and the nearest backup was 40 minutes out. I drove out there alone, and I didn't like it. The road to the estate was half a mile of dark trees with no streetlights, and my phone signal dropped to 1 bar before I reached the gate. The house appeared through the rain, 3 stories of stone and dark windows, and I ran through the downpour to the front door where a man in his 30s was waiting under the porch light. He was pale with blood smeared on his sleeve, but his voice was steady and his hands weren't shaking. And something about how composed he was made me uneasy because his father had just been murdered and he sounded like he was giving directions to a restaurant. "I'm Elliot Ashworth. He's in the study." He walked me into a wood-paneled study that smelled like old leather and something metallic underneath it that made my stomach tighten before I saw the body. Victor Ashworth was slumped over his desk in a pool of blood with a pen still in his hand and a half-written letter under his arm. Seeing it up close made my stomach drop because this wasn't a clean death, and whoever did this had been angry, and this man had been in the middle of writing something when he died. Someone had hit him in the back of the head hard enough to kill him, and the weapon was gone. I checked for a pulse, found cold skin, and pulled on my gloves. Who else is in the house? My mother Patricia, my sister Nina, Nina's husband Wesley, and our housekeeper Dolores. The study had 2 entrances, and both were unlocked, and there was no sign of forced entry anywhere. I had Elliot bring everyone to the living room. Patricia Ashworth was on the edge of a sofa with mascara running down her face and an amber drink shaking in her hand that she kept bringing to her lips and putting back down without sipping. Nina was in an armchair across the room with tears running silently down her face and her hands gripping the armrests so hard her knuckles were white. She looked up at me when I walked in and said in a voice that cracked on every word, "Please find who did this." He was trying to make things right. Something about the way she said it made my chest ache because she sounded like someone who had been waiting a very long time for her father to love her, and he had finally started, and now he was gone. Her husband Wesley was bouncing on his feet by the window, chewing his thumbnail so hard I could see the skin around it was raw, and he flinched when I walked in. Dolores, the housekeeper, sat in a straight-backed chair by the door with her hands folded in her lap and sharp eyes that weren't watching me at all, but were watching everyone else in the room. My backup was 30 minutes away, and one of these people had killed a man tonight. And looking at them sitting there, I felt the weight of that settle on me because I was the only thing standing between a murderer and the rest of this family. "I need to ask you all some questions. Nobody leaves this room." Patricia burst into sobs so hard her whole body shook. "Who would do this?" Nina didn't look at her mother. "Plenty of people." I pulled Elliot into the hallway first because he was the calmest person in the house, and that either meant he was handling it well or he'd had time to prepare. He told me dinner had been tense because Wesley and his father had gotten into a screaming match. Wesley got in Dad's face and said, "This ends tonight, or I will end it for you." Everyone heard it. Mom dropped her fork. Dad went white. Wesley's hands shook through his entire interview. Victor was cruel to Nina for years. I told him he owed her an apology. That's all I said. "Elliot told me you threatened him." I said this ends tonight. That is a boundary, not a threat. Nina shut down during the formal interview and wouldn't say more than a word at a time. Patricia couldn't finish a sentence without dissolving. Then Dolores touched my arm after the others went back. "Detective, I need to tell you something privately. There's something about this family that nobody in this room knows except me, and it's the reason Victor is dead tonight." Before she could say another word, Elliot appeared in the doorway holding a brass letter opener with something dark on the blade. "I found this behind the bookshelf. Might be important." I bagged it, and when I turned back, Dolores was looking at Elliot with an expression that made something prickle at the back of my mind, even though I couldn't read it yet. "We'll talk in a few minutes," I told her. I was examining the letter opener when a scream tore through the house from the kitchen. I dropped the bag and ran. Dolores was on the tile floor with her teacup shattered beside her, and her lips were blue, and her eyes were fixed on the ceiling. I pressed 2 fingers to her neck and held them there, willing myself to feel something, but there was nothing. I picked up a piece of the broken cup, and a sharp chemical smell hit me hard enough that I jerked my head back. I stood up slowly and felt the hair on the back of my neck rise because the one person who had asked to speak to me privately was dead on the kitchen floor with poison in her tea. I looked at the hallway stretching into the dark house, and for the first time in my career, I felt genuinely afraid. I walked back to the living room, and every face turned toward me at once. Patricia's drink stopped halfway to her mouth, and Wesley straightened against the wall, and Nina's red eyes locked onto mine, and Elliot looked up from his phone. Dolores is dead. The glass slipped out of Patricia's hand and shattered on the hardwood floor. 2? Dolores is dead? Poisoned. Wesley pressed himself flat against the wall. I haven't been anywhere near that kitchen. Nina stood up so fast her chair rocked behind her, and her face twisted with a grief so raw it made my chest hurt. Someone just killed the woman who raised us. It's him, Patricia said, jabbing her finger at Wesley. He threatened Victor, and now they're both dead. I didn't threaten anyone. I said what everyone at this table has been thinking for 20 years. Nina grabbed Wesley's arm hard enough that her knuckles went white. Stop. Elliot held up both hands, and his voice was low and even. Everyone, let the detective work. I looked at him standing there calm and steady while everyone else fell apart, and I wasn't sure yet whether that made him trustworthy or terrifying. I went back through Victor's study drawer by drawer. In the top drawer, I found a phone I hadn't seen before, different from the one on his desk, locked with a thumbprint. I bagged it and kept looking. In the bottom drawer, my fingers found a handwritten letter addressed to Nina. The handwriting was shaky, with words crossed out, and started over, and I realized it was a draft of the letter he'd been writing at his desk when he died. Nina, I owe you more apologies than I have years left to give them. I have been a terrible father to you. I was cold when you needed warmth and absent when you needed presence. And I told myself it was because I was busy, when the truth is, I was somewhere else entirely. My failure was never about you. It was always about me. I am so sorry. Never delivered. And reading it made something ache in my chest, because this man had been trying to finish an apology to his daughter, and someone killed him before the ink was dry. I looked at the bookshelves. Framed photos of Elliot lined every shelf, but I found Nina in only 3, and in 2, she was at the edge of the frame, like whoever took the picture hadn't noticed she was there, and it made me angry on her behalf, even though I barely knew her. Every window and door in the house was locked from inside. I walked the upstairs hallway and found the back stairs Elliot claimed he'd used for water, and they led straight down to the corridor outside the study. The pantry was on the opposite side of the house, nowhere near those stairs, and a cold, uneasy feeling settled into my gut because Elliot had lied about something very specific. My phone signal flickered between 1 bar and nothing, and my chest tightened because if something happened to me, I might not be able to call for help. I sat across from Nina in the living room, and she was gripping the armrests hard enough that I could see the tendons in her hands, and her eyes were red and swollen. Tell me about your father. He had 2 children, and one of them mattered. Her voice broke on the last word, and she pressed her lips together hard to stop them from trembling. Wesley seems to care about how he treated you. Wesley is the only person who ever cared. Not my mother, not my brother, not anyone in this house except the man everyone is trying to blame for murder. Did your father ever hit you? He didn't have to. He just acted like we weren't there. You can break a person without ever raising your hand. She looked at me, and I could see in her face how much it had cost her to say that out loud. Glass shattered somewhere in the house, and I was on my feet and running before the echo stopped. The dining room side window was smashed open with rain pouring through the frame and wind whipping the curtains sideways and shards of glass glittering on the hardwood, and Wesley was gone. Elliot stood a few feet from the broken window with his hands in his pockets, looking grim. He panicked. Not what an innocent person does. I told everyone to stay put and pushed through the back door into the rain, and the cold hit me like a slap, and my heart was pounding because either I was chasing a killer into the dark or leaving one behind me in the house. I found Wesley in the garage, crouched behind a workbench, soaking wet, hugging his knees, teeth clicking together. I'd interviewed hundreds of people, and I knew what performance looked like, and this wasn't it. I need to tell you something about Elliot, he said. He told me he was in bed when Victor was killed, but he wasn't. I couldn't sleep, so I was walking the upstairs hallway, and I saw him coming up the back stairs from the ground floor. Those stairs come up from the corridor next to the study, not from the kitchen. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because Elliot is the one everyone believes. If I accuse him and he denies it, who do you think they side with? I brought Wesley back dripping on the marble and walked straight to Elliot and stood close enough that he had to tilt his chin up to look at me, and I could feel my pulse in my ears because I was about to confront a man who might have killed 2 people tonight. Wesley saw you coming up from the ground floor the night of the murder. You told me you were in bed. He didn't flinch, and he didn't shift, and he didn't move a single muscle in his face. Wesley just ran from a murder investigation. I take anything he says with a very large grain of salt. Were you downstairs or not? I went down for water. The back stairs also connect to the pantry, which is where the glasses are. "This isn't complicated, detective." He said it with a little smile that looked painted on and offered to make coffee for everyone. I sat with Nina and Wesley while Elliot went to the kitchen, and she was holding her husband's hand, and neither of them was talking. I asked if anyone outside the family might want to hurt Victor. "My father didn't have enemies," Nina said. "He had people he'd disappointed, more than any of us probably knew." The lights went out all at once, and the darkness was instant and total and suffocating, and my heart slammed into my chest so hard I could feel it in my throat, because this house was half a mile from anything, and without power, there was nothing. No glow from a neighbor's porch, no streetlight bleeding through the curtains, just black, and Patricia screamed from somewhere in the living room. I heard furniture scraping and footsteps going fast down the hallway, and then a heavy thud followed by a crack that sounded like someone's head hitting marble. My hand found my weapon, and my other hand pulled my flashlight off my belt, and I clicked it on and swept the beam down the hallway. Nina was crumpled on the floor with blood running from a gash above her ear. My hands were shaking as I dropped beside her and pressed 2 fingers to her neck and found a weak pulse. Someone had attacked her 10 feet from where I was standing, and I hadn't been able to stop it, and that rattled me more than anything else tonight. I swept the beam through every doorway. Patricia was in the living room entrance with her hands over her mouth, and Wesley was against the far wall with his eyes wide, exactly where I'd left him. Elliot came around the corner from the kitchen with his phone flashlight on. What happened? The power hummed back on and on. The marble 2 feet from Nina's head was a man's wedding ring. Elliot walked over and picked it up before I could open my mouth, and a flash of irritation went through me. "This is Wesley's. Must have come off when he grabbed her. Put that down. That is evidence." Wesley stared at the ring. "That is my ring, but I was right here the entire time. You saw me." Patricia grabbed my arm hard enough that her nails broke skin. "Please arrest him. Victor is dead, Dolores is dead, Nina is on the floor." I held the ring under the hallway light and turned it slowly. Wesley had been in the rain for 10 minutes, and everything on him was soaked through, his shoes leaving wet prints on marble. The ring was completely dry, clean and warm without a trace of moisture. I ran my thumb across the inside, and something clicked in my head so hard it felt like a lock turning behind my eyes. I looked up, and Elliot was watching me with a pleasant, patient expression. I put the ring in an evidence bag. "I need to check the breaker panel. Elliot, show me where it is." He walked me down a back hallway, and I was acutely aware that I was walking deeper into a dark house with a man I was starting to believe had killed 2 people tonight. The breaker was in a utility closet near the kitchen, and I stepped inside and put my back against the wall so he couldn't get behind me, and rested my hand on my belt near my weapon. He was bigger than me by at least 50 pounds, and in this closet, there was nowhere to run if he moved. "Elliot, what was Dolores going to tell me?" He leaned against the opposite wall with his arms crossed. "She was old, probably ancient family drama. She asked to speak to me privately, and you walked in with a letter opener before she could get a word out. Lucky timing. And 30 minutes later, she was dead. Terrible coincidence. You called 911 tonight, and the very first thing you did was point me at Wesley, because Wesley threatened my father. You found a letter opener in the study and brought it to me at the exact moment Dolores was trying to talk. His face stayed the same. When Wesley ran, you stood at that window and said that's not what an innocent person does. It isn't. When I confronted you about the back stairs, you said you were in the pantry. I was. And then Nina got attacked in the dark, and you walked straight to a wedding ring on the floor and picked it up before I could even look at the scene. His arms uncrossed slowly, and he shifted his weight for the first time. What are you saying, detective? The ring is dry, Elliot. Wesley was soaked from head to toe, and that ring is clean and warm and dry. It was not on his hand tonight. Maybe it fell off earlier. Or maybe every single piece of evidence pointing at Wesley tonight came from the same person. You steered me at him from minute 1. You interrupted Dolores. You found evidence in the study. You found the ring on the floor. Every bit of it came from you. You're making a serious mistake. You told me the pantry connects to the back stairs. I walked that corridor during my search, and the pantry is on the opposite side of the house. Something shifted behind his eyes, and the helpful sun, the calm one, the steady one, all of it slid off his face, and what was underneath was flat and cold and still. A chill ran through me because I was looking at the real Elliot for the first time. I want a lawyer. You can have one. I'm searching your car first. He moved before I finished the sentence. His shoulder slammed into my chest and drove me backwards into the wall hard enough that a picture frame shattered behind my head and glass rained down on my shoulders. Adrenaline flooded through me, and I grabbed the back of his shirt, and he spun, and his elbow caught me in the ribs, and something cracked inside me, and the pain was so sharp, my vision went white for a full second. He got his hand on my weapon, and I twisted sideways and slammed my palm into his wrist, and he let go and ripped free and made it 3 steps before Wesley came through the doorway and drove him into the floor, and I was on Elliot's back with my cuffs out before he could get up. It was Wesley! You're arresting me? The ring is dry, Elliot. I walked out into the rain with my ribs screaming and popped his trunk, a hand towel rolled up tight. I pulled it open and found a heavy brass bookend with dark stains matted into the base, and my hands tightened around it because I was holding the thing that killed Victor Ashworth, and it had been in his son's trunk the entire time. I carried the bookend inside and set it on the hallway table. Patricia stared at the bookend. Is that from Victor's study? It was in your son's trunk. I grabbed the second phone I'd found in Victor's desk and unlocked it with Elliot's thumbprint on file. I scrolled through messages until I found a hidden folder. Catherine. Photos loaded one by one. A woman with dark hair, 2 children growing up across the screen, birthday cakes and school plays and Christmas mornings, and a whole other life Victor had been living. I turned the phone toward Patricia. Do you know who this woman is? She looked at the screen and her hand went to her mouth. No. Who is she? Your husband had a second family for at least 12 years. Patricia's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on the sofa. Wesley caught Nina's arm as she swayed beside him, and I understood what Victor meant in his letter when he wrote, "The truth is, I was somewhere else entirely." He hadn't been talking about work. I scrolled to the last text Victor had sent Elliot and read it out loud. I told your mother everything tonight. I'm leaving. I'm sorry, but I should have been with them from the beginning. I wish I'd had that life instead of this one. Something heavy settled in my chest because now I understood why he'd done it, and the reason was worse than anything I'd imagined. Your father told you he had another family and that he wished they were his real one. He told you the life you grew up in was the one he regretted, and an hour later, he was dead. Elliot stared at the floor, and his jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping in his cheek. Dolores knew about Catherine. She'd worked in this house for 30 years, and she knew about all of it, and she tried to tell me, and you poisoned her before she could. I want my lawyer. You attacked your sister in the dark and planted Wesley's ring because he was the only person who saw you on those stairs. Everything you did tonight was aimed at making sure nobody found out what your father said to you. Nina opened her eyes on the sofa and blinked at me, and at Patricia kneeling beside her. Your dad wrote you a letter, I said, and I handed it to her. She read it slowly, with her lips moving on every word, and when she finished, she pressed it against her chest with both hands and closed her eyes, and her whole body shook with a sob that came from somewhere so deep it didn't make a sound. He was going to apologize to me. He never apologized to me once in my entire life, and he was finally trying to make things right. She opened her eyes and looked down at her brother, sitting handcuffed on the hallway floor, and her face crumbled and rebuilt itself into something harder. He was finally going to say sorry, and you took that too. Backup pulled up the driveway with red and blue lights flashing through the rain, and 2 officers took Elliot by the arms and walked him out. He didn't look at any of us. Patricia sat on the sofa with her face in her hands. Nina stood in the hallway holding the letter against her chest, with Wesley's arm around her, and she was letting him hold her up instead of holding herself together. I walked out the front door and stood on the steps, and the rain hit my face, and the lights swept across the oak trees, and I heard the officers putting Elliot in the back of the car, and the door slammed shut, and I stood there and breathed and felt something loosen in my chest that had been wound tight since I walked through that front door.